morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Good morning. Good morning. Glad you're here. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're a regular on the show, you know what to do. Click that like button and just help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty to more people this morning. If it's your first time watching the show today and you enjoy the content that you're watching, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on. It's been awesome to see all of the growth on all of the different channels and to start seeing us averaging around 70 to 100 live viewers simultaneously amongst the many platforms. So thank you to all the people who are helping to make that happen. The Wake Up America show is coming up on its 1-year anniversary. It's going to be our birthday here pretty soon. We're excited about that. But not yet. Today is actually Corey C's birthday. I see you over on YouTube. Happy birthday, Corey C. Thanks so much for being a supporter of the show, Corey. It's been nice to see you here over the last several months. I know you've been a regular, and happy birthday, Tootie. Congratulations. You're 40 years old. You're like me. You're over the hill. Old. Ancient. I know. Don't freak out. Don't panic. I know. It's no fun. But we'll help you get through this. Happy birthday to you, Corey. Everybody say happy birthday to Corey. We're grateful for you, brother. Hope you have a wonderful day. All right, let's talk about the news. At the top of the show today, should women vote? It's gone from trolling to in real life. Social influencer goes by the name of Pearl, who's found quite a large following online in the manosphere, or what we call the red pill world, went on Piers Morgan's program yesterday to argue in favor of taking away women's right to vote. We're going to talk about that. We're going to play that clip. We'll respond to it, react to it this morning at the top of the show, and we'll get your thoughts. That's just, surely, why not just start with a hot button topic right off the bat? And we'll get an update on the cocaine that was found in the White House library yesterday. The news broke that the Secret Service found a bag of cocaine in the White House. We'll talk about that and some of the latest and greatest on that one. I thought it was funny. A member of the Team Biden, I guess part of the campaign team for Joe Biden's re-election campaign, was saying that Hunter Biden should sue the people who accused him of being the one who left the baggie of cocaine, that he should sue people who accused Hunter Biden of being the one who left the bag of cocaine in the White House. I kid you not. Sue them for defamation. As if it was ridiculous to think that cocaine that might be left in the White House could possibly be Hunter Biden's. Yeah, I'd like to see Hunter Biden sue the people who said that, honestly, because then you get this little thing called discovery and you get to do a little bit of digging into Hunter's life. I think that would be a lot of fun, wouldn't you? I think we should do it. I hope you do. Sue us. Sue me, sue me, sue me, sue me, Hunter Biden. Make me more famous. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you could ever imagine. Oh, yes. And then all of a sudden at the door, FBI, open up! Yeah, you know how it be. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Heartland Okie joining us this morning. Good morning, Heartland. Nice to see you, brother. He says he's subscribed now. Thank you. And that cocaine, definitely not Hunter's. Sure. We'll talk about that. And then at 7:35 today, in keeping with Keeping It Weird on the Wake Up America show at 7:30, this is how you know that we're not like a typical conservative show here and we're more badass libertarian show. At 7:30 today, I'm going to have the ultra gay biker dad on the show. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Get excited. Ultra gay biker guy dad is going to be on the show today at 7:30. I finally got it worked out. He was supposed to be on yesterday. But he wants to come on the show today and explain why he is LGB drop the T, why he thinks that the LGBT movement should remove the T from the equation. Well, I wonder what he thinks about the 2IA plus a billion things. What does he think about putting autism spectrum on the LGBTQ flag? That thing's just starting to look like a mess, isn't it? But it's going to be a great show because we're going to have ultra gay biker dad, and he won't be on camera. It's just going to be over the phone because I know, sad. It's going to be because he's even though he's an ultra gay biker dad, he fears retribution from the LGBTQIA plus community. He thinks the alphabet people come after him. And you know what? He's got a good point. So I promised that I would conceal his identity, but he will be with us on the phone today because you know what? ultra gay biker dad just sounds like a great guest, doesn't it? Am I wrong? I mean, that sounds kind of fun. Oh yeah. Anybody with a name ultra gay biker dad, just like, you want to be on my show? It's a freak show here on the Wake Up America show. What do you say? Are we having fun yet? We haven't even started the news, really. We're just getting you warmed up. Harley says there are lots of gay men and women upset at the targeted children. Absolutely. He says he doesn't agree with the trans narrative as well. Thank you very much. Glad to have you here. Sarah Palacios joining us this morning. The lovely Sarah Palacios. Good morning to you, Sarah. Nice to see you here. We're glad to have all of our friends here over on YouTube. And if you're watching us on Rumble, it's a little bit harder for those who are watching us on Rumble to click that like button because they got to be signed in. Do us a favor, hit that like button if you're watching us this morning. Beat it like it owes you money. Blue Trike and Kermode Bear are already joining us over there on Rumble. Good morning to all of our Rumblers today. Blue Trike says, did they check the bag of cocaine for Parmesan? You guys are already funny. Yes, I can see that. Hunter has no record of drug abuse. Truly a horrible accusation. Totally unfair to suggest the coke was his. Nelson65. Good morning, Nelson. Hey, thanks for that donation, by the way, Nelson. I saw that come in last night to my Bleed American documentary. I'm filming at the end of this month a documentary in Athens, Tennessee about the Battle of Athens. If you haven't heard about it yet, definitely check it out on my platform at givesendgo.com/bleed American. It's a new documentary that I will be filming, my very first feature length. I'm very excited about telling the story of veterans who fought back against election fraud and corruption in their small town in 1946, who laid siege to their jail to ensure that they had free and fair elections where the ballots had been hidden inside by their corrupt local Democratic Party machine. Well, these veterans fought back and won their freedom and their right to vote. So I'm going to record some interviews while I'm there in Tennessee and just talk to the townspeople at this festival that they're going to have about the Battle of Athens and bring that documentary to you very soon, hopefully before next year's elections, of course, because I think that's where it'll really have the most impact. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you here. All right, what's next on the list? Let's see. Oh, yes. Haha. Oh, Mark Zuckerberg launches Threads. I have to say, congratulations. Yesterday, I was sitting down with the wifey and we were talking about this new social media platform. And I got to say, Stephanie is kind of done with social media. And honestly, I don't blame her, right? Every time I open it up, even on this new platform that Mark Zuckerberg has launched, it's always some kind of negative hatefulness or something like that. And, I'm guilty of doing that too, as well, sometimes, like just being, deliberately hostile or negative on social media. So did we really need another social media platform? I leave that up to you. Stephanie's like, I don't think I'm gonna get on that one. I was trying to talk her into it, and I'm just still trying to figure it out. It launched last night. It's a competitor to, excuse me, hold on 1 second. Oh, thank you. A competitor to Elon Musk's Twitter. Mark Zuckerberg has launched Threads, which is a new app that is connected through Instagram in a sort of way. I still can't understand why those two things need to be connected. But of course, this is all part of Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse with Facebook, aka Meta, even though they've kind of run away from Meta. Boy, what a huge disaster that was. But Zuckerberg has basically launched a digital street fight directly competing with Elon Musk by launching this new Threads app that seems to operate in a very similar way to Twitter. As a matter of fact, I don't know if there's any kind of an intellectual property battle that can ensue over this, but I mean, who knows? I mean, millions of people have already signed up for the new app called Threads, and we'll talk a little bit about it, and we'll take a look at the platform and see what it is. And yeah, I'm just going to go back and forth. I mean, it's kind of the biggest news that's really not that big of news if you think about it, because even though millions of people have signed up, millions of people are going to try it. What does it offer that Twitter doesn't already offer? I mean, it's a good question, and we'll leave it up to you. Are you going to join the new app? I'd love to hear from you. You can drop a comment over on whichever live stream you're watching us on this morning, or you can text the show at 573-319-1586. Again, that's 573-319-1586. Yeah, listeners yesterday sent me texts. I'm looking at it right now that had like a little black screen moment where I forgot to push the button to start the commercial, and yeah, so we'll try not to have any of those technical issues this morning. Glad to have you here. Stephanie Peterson, my lovely wife, is there in the chat. Says she's doing a little therapy session, so she can't focus much, but she's here in spirit. Glad to have you here. Chris Morrill says, I would much prefer to stay on Twitter. Facebook has been quite mean to me. Yeah, same here, actually. I agree with you, Chris. I don't trust the new social platform because anything that Mark Zuckerberg touches for me is usually a no go because I get banned like crazy, suppressed. I'm on like uh, a year long suspension on Facebook where it's all of my posts basically go to the bottom of everybody's feeds, so almost no one sees anything I post on Facebook. If you're watching us on Facebook this morning, congratulations. You're one of like out of like 103,000 followers, or it's really about a quarter of a million followers that I have on my pages on Facebook. Maybe you're watching us on the Libertarian Republic this morning or Liberty Viral or on my Austin Peterson page. You're one of like a quarter of a million people that follow me can't see my posts on Facebook. So I don't really spend a lot of time over on Facebook just because I know at any point in time they can pull the rug out from underneath me. And Instagram, I'm like, one suspension away from being banned from there forever. So I imagine that Threads will probably be the same. So I can't really invest a lot of time or energy into a platform that I don't know that I'll have a future on, which is why I like platforms like Rumble. Actually, I kind of starting to love Rumble, I'm not going to lie. And I stay on YouTube as well because I think it's a good platform. And so far, they actually have not been censoring my streams. I will say that, in order for me to monetize any of my streams on YouTube, I do have to request reviews of every single live stream that I do in the mornings. In order for me to monetize these shows that you're watching on YouTube, I have to request reviews. So they have to approve it for monetization every single show that I do before I can monetize it. So, it's possible that if for some reason the Wake Up America show becomes a really big show on YouTube, a lot of people start watching it, it's possible that they might start taking down my streams. So interesting enough. So we'll talk about this new platform at 7:51 this morning. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts about this one. I think Chris Morrill is right when he just said Elon opened the door for this by bungling Twitter so badly, though. It's been kind of a poop show. It certainly has. I agree. And a lot of people who are Elon cheerleaders like myself have to agree, have been saying the same thing online that the changes that have been made to Twitter have been, I would say, disastrous because lots of things have been broken down, lots of things have been breaking. I used to be able to stream the Wake Up America show directly to Twitter so people could tune in and watch the show. Now I have to upload it after. It doesn't get as many views over there or as many interactions over there. And I can't live stream on Twitter. Maybe they're going to roll that functionality out at some point in the future, but they didn't communicate that. They just basically took away a major functionality for me. And I know 2,000, 3,000 views per day for a platform isn't much in comparison to, people like I don't know, Cat Turd or something like that, who get like a million viewers a day. But 2 or 3,000 views a day is a lot for me, and it really does hurt my bottom line because I use this. I try and monetize this show this to my advertisers, Lear Capital, John Burke, Shell Shock CBD, who's going to be with us in studio tomorrow, by the way, and say, hey, here's the numbers that we have. This is why I'm worth this amount of money for our monthly agreements. So it's a challenge, but I wonder if Threads is going to allow me to sort of boost the Wake Up America show or not. Are you signing up for the platform? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Let us know in the chat if you plan on signing up for Threads, if you've already signed up there, maybe what you think of it. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that today. So drop your comments now. Camellia says Threads has surely been in the works longer than Elon has taken over Twitter. I'm not sure about that because I was surprised at how sort of a shotgun the approach was to Meta. Camellia, you might be surprised at how quick they kind of poop these things out. You know what I mean? Anyways, Nelson says that I share this show on Rumble. We appreciate that. Thanks a lot, brother. You rock. Yes, I do like my Rumble. And we've already got some good likes over there. Make sure you're clicking like on that stream. Nice to see you. Postman4242 says Rumble needs to work on the chat. Yes, completely agree with you on that one. But you know what? There really is no perfect platform. If you're a freedom-loving libertarian like myself, you're always in trouble in some form or another. You know why he doesn't put Twitter on the blockchain, says Heartland Okie. He would have to open all the changes on the network, all the owners of the token that that drives the CEO would lose all control. That's an interesting one there. Grover Bentley says, I have 3 followers on Threads. I'm kind of a big deal. Nice. Nice. Congratulations. All right. Camellia Peterson joins us this morning at 8 a.m. It's 7:18, and I haven't even gotten through all the news stories this morning. We haven't even gotten to the news. Camellia Peterson is going to answer that question. Should women vote? That should be fun. You know that she's always fun for that, for topics of that nature, as well as ways to get a rad trad. You can get a rad trad wife with this one simple trick. Men, this is advice for men, how to get a rad trad wife with this one simple trick, or how to get more women to act like rad trad wives, or just trad wives, or just be your wives, right? So you don't have to be single, lonely little butt chunks. Camellia will join us at 8 o'clock to talk about that. Should be fun. Of course, Joni Rankin says, Threads, she plans on checking it out. Give us your handle. Well, what do you think it is? Of course, it's AP for Liberty. I'm AP for Liberty everywhere, except for on Twitch, where I'm Stream Liberty. I couldn't get AP for Liberty over there for some reason. But pretty much like nobody watches us on Twitch anyway, but except for like 1 or 2 people. The one guy who's watching us on Twitch this morning is very offended by that. Sorry. Chris Morrill says, F it, he's going to Friendster. We should all go back to MySpace. That was our big mistake there. What is in store for Parlor, says Aya Katz. Good morning, Aya. Nice to see you, lovely. Did you hear Starboard bought them and took them offline? I did hear about that, so I wonder what's going to happen to them. I'll be curious to see what happens with them next. But let's go ahead and play the clip of, this is a social influencer by the name of Pearl, and she's what you call a men's rights activist, I would say. Someone in the manosphere online, or a red pill activist. And she gets millions of views by going out and questioning the sort of feminist matriarchy, mainstream feminist ideals that dominate the political conventions in the mainstream media. And so she appeared on Piers Morgan's show to argue in favor of taking away women's right to vote as a woman. I thought it was quite fascinating, and I can't wait to talk to Camellia Peterson about it a little bit later. Take a listen to this.
Of your proposals, like taking the vote away from women, are deeply regressive. Why would you want to remove, just from yourself, the right to vote?
Well, what happened was I had the same view, right? Back when I started, I was like, why? I found out that only 5% of women wanted the right to vote. And I couldn't figure out, like, why.
Pause. She found out that only 5% of women wanted the right to vote. I would definitely, if I had a statistic like that that was so shocking, you should always be ready to back it up. Because if I have a statistic or something and it is some kind of shocking statistic, I am like right there with the source in order to prove it. So I wouldn't just say something like that and not back it up. I call bullshit on that one, okay? But maybe a lot of women don't think that the women should have the right to vote. I don't think it's that striking of statistic. I'd love to see her numbers on this one, but we don't see it.
Would women not? No, it's true. It's true. You look it up.
At the time.
At the time.
Because they've been conditioned by men to think that they shouldn't have a vote.
I mean, that's what they say, but
at the time. So let's hear what she says there. Let's back this up here.
Wanted the right to vote. And I couldn't figure out, like, why would women not? No, it's true. It's true. You look it up.
At the time.
At the time.
Because they've been conditioned by men to think that they shouldn't have a vote.
So in the early 1900s, only 5% of women wanted the right to vote. Okay. Now, that doesn't, I mean, but that's women kind of voting in a way, right? So, I mean, and it doesn't take a majority to succeed. It's just like with the American Revolution. We were talking about this the other day on the 4th of July. It only takes a keen, irate minority of people who are fighting for freedom, and they fought for the right to vote and they won.
I mean, that's what they say, but I started reading their writings, right? And what I found out was that the reason a lot of women advocated for it was because they believed it was the beginning of the breakdown of the family. Before you became one in marriage, 85% of people were married. And, I hate to say it, but they were right. What has happened 100 years later?
Well, what's that going to do with them having the vote?
Yeah.
Well, it also goes back to responsibility. Again, men are 80 to 90% of the military. They run all of the infrastructures that make society run. So I just think if we want an equal say in society, then be equal. Do 50% of the hard jobs. Be 50% of the military. In the U.S., they're fined $250,000 if they don't join selective service, which is essentially the draft.
Okay, but on specifically on the vote, what would having the right to vote have to do with?
She makes some good points here. Okay, so and this is something that Camellia and I have talked about on the show, and we're going to get into it again at 8 a.m. Aren't you excited? Yes. Camellia and I are going to join. Apparently, Camellia isn't a big fan of Pearl. Anyways, we'll talk about it. But I think that the idea that women would ever perform 50% of hard labor or ever compete with men in professional sports or all of these other things, those are obviously ridiculous. But the thing is that in a free society, you have some, I guess you might say, privileges that are afforded to people who are unable to, in order to have what I would call civilization, you have privileges afforded to people who can't necessarily pay for them. So in an anarcho-capitalist society, if you can't afford to pay for private police protection, well, you're just out of luck. Grandma can't afford to pay the private police tax, for the local town, or we call it, might as well call it a tax, because you're going to have to pay it if you want people to be able to guard your goods. Maybe you can come up with a barter system for your neighbors who have guns, and will say, hey, I'll look out for grandma's property or something like that. There's a lot. I know ANCAPs are going to come up with a million different scenarios, but quite frankly, not everybody in society can afford to pay for privatized police. And there's a reason why, even though we do have plenty of private fire departments and volunteer firefighters, there is a reason why in a large city, there is a firefighter tax, so that you can afford to have firefighting, because there's negative consequences that occur when somebody's house lights on fire and can spread to the rest of the community, right? So are women going to, that's a long roundabout way to say that there are people in society who may not be able to meet the standards of the expectations of the Ubermensch, right? But we don't live in a society where it's survival of the fittest, right? Not to say that we shouldn't have a merit-based society to a large degree, but a 90-year-old grandma who can't afford police protection shouldn't have to hope that her neighbors are going to protect her from roving bands of anarcho-communist Antifa gangs who would want to, pillage and loot her house, right? So anyways, that's a roundabout way to say that I believe in a limited government, right? That I'm a minarchist and not an anarchist. Anyways, let's continue. This is good stuff, right?
Family cohesion, for example.
Well, because again, before you weren't trying to divide a family. It was one family unit. You had one vote for the family. I mean, I don't think it's good for a family to have two votes.
Ava, your mouth seems to have dropped about.
No, do you know what it's sort of like?
I know.
It's just sort of a bit galaxy brain. I feel like, the stats that you're putting down.
Sort of a bit galaxy brain. See that British accent right there? Because I must be, because it's the 4th of July. I'm just kind of like, no.
Oh, God!
Oh, no.
Please,
Did it have to be a British girl to come on here and argue in favor of the women's right to vote? We need an American girl to make that argument. We'll have to have Camellia Peterson do it here in about 30 minutes. But first, we're going to take a little detour. Then we're going to go get on the highway looking for adventure, or whatever comes my way. All right, it's Born to be Wild. Ultra gay, homosexual biker dad says he's LGB, but he's ready to drop the T. If you can read this, the T fell off. Only a few people are going to be able to get that joke. All right, when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. It was 1946. A battle was fought, not overseas, but right here on American soil. The Battle of Athens. An intense struggle against election fraud and for the rights promised by our founding fathers. Driven by the Second Amendment, ordinary citizens stood tall and fought back. Help us expose this momentous battle of integrity and bravery. Your support can make a difference. Visit givesendgo.com/bleedamerican and pledge your support, because we believe in the power of truth, the strength of unity, and the spirit of we the people. Let us not forget, we bleed American.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Thanks so much for getting up so early and joining us. Rise and Freedom. We're ready to rock and roll today. We've had so much fun already in the first 30 minutes of the show. The next 90 minutes, are only going to get better, starting with my next guest. Well, many people in the LGBTQIA+, and now apparently autistic people are considered to be part of that. Did you see the new changes in the pride flag? Well, you've heard my brother, Justin Peterson, big gay Justin, going to Boston Pride rally, talking about how crazy things have gotten in the Pride movement. Pride Month is over. All the corporations have discarded their rainbow flag symbols. So some people in the LGBTQI+ community are saying that it's time for the madness to end. They're ready for a new movement, the LGB Drop the T movement. On the phone with me right now is one advocate for that point of view. We call him the ultra gay biker dad. You can call him Harley. Good morning, Harley. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Austin. Thank you very much for having me, sir.
Yeah, I follow you on Twitter, which you got a great follow over there. I think your Twitter handle is Another Homo Con. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, sir.
So you consider yourself to be a gay conservative?
Yes, I would, sir. I've pretty much always been more on the conservative side of things. To let you know, I've never really been a very good gay from the get-go. I was always very different on the outskirts of the gay community. But the politics that the LGBTQAI++ has taken this hard left within the last 10 years, I can't even relate to the community at all anymore.
Well, I come from the liberty wing of the right. I consider myself to be a libertarian Republican, and I always find it fascinating, the tension within the Republican Party of the social conservative movement and having to square the circle with the fact that we have so many gay conservatives, and the fact that we really need gay conservatives right now to stand up for the same agenda that we all share, one of limited government and personal freedom and free speech and the First Amendment and freedom of religion. But we'll get to the tension in the Republican Party on that issue a little bit later. I'd like to talk to you about some comments that you made, Harley, on Twitter, specifically about how people like yourself feel about how transgenderism itself has sort of taken over the LGBT movement. Would you speak to that?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm going to put one big caveat here before we do continue, and that is that I am in the corner of transsexual individuals. Transsexuals, about 10, 15 years ago, would have been the only people who would have been considered, in finger quotes, transgender. They now make up only 5% of what is transgender today. And these were people who were getting the literal sex changes, doing their best to try and pass as the opposite sex, and had a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. But they are now the truest minority of the trans community. As for being transgender versus being homosexual, like gays and lesbians are, our gender identity is fine. It's our sexuality that's the difference from the norm versus them, they have this gender confusion. But the biggest issue of all of this is that the LGBTQAI plus plus numbers have literally doubled only in the Western world within the last few years. How many gays and lesbians that we had, and how many true transsexual people that we had, has exploded over here in the Western world. And well, why is it? It's because there are a lot of people who are aligned with the far left who are now pretending to be some flavor of gay, lesbian, or transgender, but they really aren't. As I like to call them, the spicy straights and the transgenders.
That's a pretty good one. The trans trenders. I guess we'll give you credit for coining it, but we're definitely going to steal that one. If you're just tuning into the
Go
Wake
for
Up. Yeah, good morning. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson, and you're probably doing a quick double take here. Is that the ultra gay biker dad that you're speaking to this morning? Yes, it is. His name's Harley. We call him that so we can protect his identity. But we have to protect your identity, Harley, because the backlash against people like yourself who speak out like this has been pretty severe.
Oh, it absolutely has. I do have to guard myself very strongly on the internet because this community of people really comes for us. And, it's a very complex problem. I'm not going to lie to you folks and say that there aren't gays that are aligned with the far left and lesbians too. Uh, they definitely come for us. But if it's not them, it's these trans trenders who are just angry straight people who want attention and are inventing gender identities. And if it's not them, it's some straight white liberal woman ally coming for me, telling me she knows what it's like to be gay better than me, who lives at 365 and one-fourth days a year. That wagging their fingers in my face, screaming and death threats, and we just it's almost impossible. I don't understand how any gay or lesbian in this day and age can still be aligned with the left when you really step back and take a look at it, and all that this LGBTQ community is really standing for. It's extraordinarily damaging and detrimental to the gay rights movement. It is extraordinarily dangerous to children. It is extraordinarily dangerous to women. And the backlash that the LGBT portion is suffering, as well as the true transsexuals, is absolutely horrific.
Talk to us a little bit about the way that the community has treated J.K. Rowling. I imagine you've probably seen how she has had this a similar kind of a backlash just for claiming that she wants to be able to protect womanhood. Because at the end of the day, you might have seen Matt Walsh's documentary. The left, they can't even answer the question, what is a woman? What's been your take on that?
Well, the funny thing is, I remember when J.K. Rowling was a rabid far leftist. Um, she turned around and after all her books were printed, and she was like, "Yeah, Hermione was black, Dumbledore was gay, and we had absolutely no indication of these characters." And I'm the perfect age demographic for Harry Potter. I grew up with it. Like Harry Potter is just a few years older than me in the canon. So I loved those books, but yeah, it was just kind of like, what? So she did all this stuff to appease the woke left crowd, and then she had one misstep, by saying that, oh, there is a difference between biological sex and women shouldn't have to be forced to be in spaces with trans women. We can still have our women and trans women spaces, but I think we still need our women's spaces. And that was a cardinal sin. And, I remember a few years ago, two gay men were murdered by somebody from a certain religion over in the UK, and not a single word about it from the big gay newspapers. They were all screaming about J.K. Rowling, just completely overlooked it and how she's transphobic. Not one word about these two murdered gay men.
That is fascinating. God, it's just a very compelling story right now to be covering. And we're speaking to Harley, aka Ultra Gay Biker Dad. You can follow him on Twitter at Another HomoCon. We're talking to him a little bit about the LGB Drop the T movement. What are your thoughts on one, the males in female spaces question, right? The locker room question. And then two, from there, biological males competing against females in sports.
Okay, well, I am definitely in the corner of all of those things with being that it needs to exist. We shouldn't have these commingled spaces. I've always been a believer that men deserve their spaces, whether we are gay or whether we are straight. The same for women. Sports, it is definitely unfair. But one thing I really think that is very important to mention is what is being called transgender today. Like I said, spicy straights, people pretending. One of these groups of people are what we call technically autogynephiles. They have a sexual fetish for dressing up like the opposite sex. And these autogynephiles have also infiltrated and stolen the trans label because it gives them protection status to force their sexual fetish on the rest of the world and make us all participate. And this is disproportionately affecting women because now these perverts can basically dress up like a woman and then say, I am a woman, and start getting access to women's spaces like locker rooms and other private spaces where women do deserve to feel safe. And now they no longer can because somebody who is literally a pervert is now in their space.
Man, this is good stuff. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here. We are lucky to be blessed with the presence of the ultra gay biker dad, aka Harley. He's talking to us a little bit today about why he is part of the LGB Drop the T movement, a group of the LGB community who are speaking out against transgenderism taking over the movement. I want to talk to you specifically about transgenderism as a sort of a social contagion or as a fad. Harley, is this something that is being widely discussed amongst groups that you share with? I know that you're part of a group we're going to talk about here in just a minute, but the idea that these people are really just trying to feel like they're a part of a community, and if so, could you speak to the fact that we're actually mutilating the genitals of children before they can come of age? I mean, a lot of these people just are probably just gay kids that are confused that we're mutilating, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a very complex problem, like I said earlier in the show, about now what is considered to be transgender. And I would say there are three groups. There are these far leftist liberal types who just want to invent gender identities so that they can force their way into our community. And that explains, what I talked about earlier, how suddenly the LGBT numbers doubled only in the Western world, unlike the rest. But for years, we were consistently the same size and still are consistently the same size outside of the Western world. They're one group of it. And then we just discussed the autogynephiles, the perverts pretending to be trans so they can force everyone to deal with their cross dressing. But yes, children are definitely being disproportionately affected by this social contagion. I mean, this is the punk of the 80s, the goth of the 90s, the emo of the 2000s. That is exactly what this is. You are very right that gay and lesbian kids, if they were left alone, would just turn out to be gays and lesbians, but here we are transing these poor gays and lesbians away. Also, what's really not talked about is there are other demographics of kids who are being affected, and this is affecting straight kids too. You have kids who have body dysmorphia. You know, a boy doesn't have the perfect V-shaped Adonis chest, or a girl doesn't have the Barbie glass tower figure. Well, you hate your body. So what we got to do is we got to change your body. And so we are giving these kids sex changes, kids with autism and other mental disorders like borderline personality disorder are also getting swept up. In fact, any poor cake baking mama's boy, whether he is straight or gay, or any tomboy, you know, sort of butchy girl, whether she's a lesbian or straight girl, are all getting swept up in this madness. And we are irrevocably damaging.
Speaking of baking the cake, I would love to get your take, Harley, on the Supreme Court decision last week that made it legal for Christians to not be forced to make websites for gay couples in their gay marriage. Your thoughts?
No, honestly doesn't bother me. You know, I kind of wish that homophobia would go away. Um, but the thing is, I grew up in a very small.
We lost him. Let's get him back. It happens, ladies and gents. Calling him right back. Don't worry. We'll get ultra gay biker dad back on the phone. You get to hear the ringtone. This is how we work.
Please leave your message for.
You know what? His phone might have died. Let's try one more time here. Let's see. Put a little bit of music on here. Something.
Yeah.
Oh, there he
Sorry,
is.
but ball failed.
No worries. It happens. It happens. So continue along with what you were saying there about you wish that homophobia obviously would go away, but
Right.
you think that people should be allowed to refuse service.
Yes, you see, sir, I grew up in a very small rural community, and I was just a different kid to begin with. My homosexuality really didn't play in until about my 20s, so I was already out of that place. But I was severely mistreated for being just a different person, and I developed a mentality of empathy. As well as being, excuse my French, but a hard ass. Like, you know, I will fight you. But I basically compare life to walking down a street. And what happened to me as a kid is people purposely walked into me and were like, watch it, jerk. So I developed a mentality of not wanting to bump into other people when I walk down the street. And why I just said that is how I feel about this whole bake the cake or you're a bigot thing. You know, I wish that we didn't have to get into fights over baking cakes and, you know, religion versus sexuality. But at the same time, what I would say is, well, I'm not going to give $800 to somebody to bake an expensive wedding cake who hates me. I'm sure I could walk down the street and find another baker who's going to sit there and go, "Oh, I love gays, yes, queen. I will make you the best wedding cake ever." I'm not going to sit there and force somebody who hates me to make a cake. So this Supreme Court ruling, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. It's a shame, you know, that still people just can't get along, but you know, that really does infringe on somebody else's rights. And I'm not going to give money to or force anybody who hates me to do something for me, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to ultra gay biker dad, aka Harley. We're talking about a host of issues surrounding the LGBT community. He says that we should drop the T. I was asking him a little bit on a side note about his thoughts on the Supreme Court justice's ruling that Christians should not be forced to make websites for gay couples getting married. And he gave the pretty libertarian take on that one, a private property rights argument as well as a religious liberty argument. And I'm with you, Harley. I completely agree. I think, you know, I'm not a religious person, but I think that religious people should be allowed to have freedom of conscience. And
Absolutely.
I would make you the biggest, most gayest wedding cake that had ever, you know, has ever been caked, because I'm a capitalist. You know, those are my values. That's my religion. If I had a church, it would be the first church of the almighty dollar. I know it's mammon and that I'm going to hell, but that Exactly, exactly. So we're glad to have you here, Harley. I'd like to give you the opportunity now, if there's anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go. It's been an awesome conversation, but I do have to get ready for the next segment. So I'd love it if you'd share with us a little bit, maybe more about this organization you were telling me about.
Yes. Well, I am working with a group of gays, lesbians, and other transsexuals, and we are called the Coterie of Exiled Gays. And we have round the table discussions, and we take questions from the straight heteronormative community at the end of our show. And you can watch it on Twitter Spaces. We might also be moving to Rumble soon. But we talk about all these hot issues that you and I have touched upon. We give in-depth conversation. We give advice. We try and help parents who are at their wits' ends with their children or what's going on, whatever we can do to help, and talk about these issues. Because as we said, this is a very complex problem. I'd probably need a 2-hour segment with you to go over all of it. So we do that kind of stuff at the Coterie of Exiled Gays. So you can catch us. We're on tomorrow night. And let's see, you can also catch me at another HomoCon, aka Ultra Gay Biker Dad, on Twitter, and that's where you can get all my spicy hot takes.
There you go. All right. Ultra Gay Biker Dad, aka Harley. Great segment. Thank you for getting up early and taking the time to chat with us about this. We definitely love to have you back on. So feel free to reach out anytime if you've got news or things you'd like to share with our audience. Okay, Harley?
All right, Austin. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope your audience has a wonderful day, sir.
Thanks so much. Thank you too. Thanks for standing up for freedom. That is Ultra Gay Biker Dad, aka Harley. What do you think about that? You see, you just don't get interviews and discussions like that on any other show. There literally is no other talk show out there that has conversations like that from that point of view. You only get it here on the Wake Up America show. And I'd also like to remind you, how about a little blast from the past? Speaking of Bake the Cake.
Stated that he believes that bakers should be forced to bake wedding cakes for people that they disagree with, homosexual couples. And this is a big problem because we're running for president as a libertarian. Is he correct in quoting you?
Yes, but I think that if you discriminate on the basis of religion, I think that that is a black hole. Look, I think you should be able to discriminate for stink or you're not wearing shoes or whatever. But I'll tell you what, if we discriminate on the basis of religion, to me, that's doing harm to a big class of people. And right now,
should a Jewish baker be required to bake a Nazi wedding cake?
I think Muslims right now in this country... I think Muslims in this country would be banned by all sorts of businesses right now because it would be the popular thing to do.
So the Jewish baker should have to bake the cake for the Nazi wedding.
That would be my contention, yes. And the example that I cited was, how about, well, the example I cite is, how about the utility the utility that is privately owned, and because it's the only market that I have to buy my electricity, they're going to cut me off for religious reasons.
This betrays a fundamental lack of understanding of the free market. You have to allow the marketplace to work. The government cannot stamp out bigotry. The government is not supposed to make us into better people. That's not what the United States was founded on. The United States was founded so that we could be whatever we wanted. Now, I hate bigotry, and I would stand outside these people's store, and I would encourage a boycott. I stand up for my friends, for their gay rights. And everyone should be equal before the law. But let the bigots out themselves. Let's know who's going to do it. Who wants to eat a cake from someone who hates you?
Out of time, Austin. I get your point. Coming up.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1. You can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2. Most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3. You're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell! This commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Did you like that interview with ultra gay homo biker dad conservative Harley guy? That was fun stuff, right? So that's how you know that I don't just like sit back and go, oh, well, I just got my regulars on the show and I'm not trying to do anything or whatever. No. Every day I am working to make the Wake Up America show the absolute best that it can be with the best interviews. But there's a reason why we have Daniella Pensack on today at 8:30. There's a reason why every Tuesday and Thursday we have Camellia Peterson on, because they are the best of the best in conservative libertarian talk. It's Camellia Peterson joining us right now, doing one of those weird car videos like those MAGA people will do where they scream into their camera phones. Good morning, Camellia.
There will be no crying this morning on camera.
No crying. No, what you got to do is you got to get out like some of those like Oakley shades and then a MAGA hat and just start screaming to the camera like, the gay agenda is going to corrupt the children. We've got to have more tariffs and bigger taxes and school choices. A terrible plan.
I'd really have to work. That would be, my acting would be so bad.
I don't know about that, Camellia. We're glad to have you here. You were so just like champing at the bit to talk about this story, we'll say. Like a thoroughbred, why don't you go ahead and just be off to the races and tell us why you think women should or shouldn't be able to vote?
Well, I really think, my whole issue with this thing is not so much about the right to vote per se, as much about women like this Pearl, I don't remember her last name now, but anyway, Pearly Things on Twitter,
Yeah.
grifting on issues like this because, she's out there talking about women's right to vote and how they shouldn't have the right to vote. And she's echoing she's parroting all of these, red pill manosphere community talking points. She can't ever back anything up. You mentioned that. She doesn't she says all this stuff, but then when she gets questioned on it, she doesn't ever back anything up. And actually, a lot of what she does has an effect on her audience that is actually contrary to what the red pill community is meant to do. But yeah, the women's right to vote. I mean, I'm sorry, no.
What do you mean? You're sorry?
She's
No, you don't think women should have the right to vote?
I think it's fine for women to have the right to vote. Can we talk about do women make bad decisions when they're voting? Of course. Are there men who make bad decisions when they're voting? Of course. So an
But
illustration
don't
of this, I
women make
think.
more bad decisions than men when it comes to voting? Don't women vote with their vaginas?
Oh Lord.
That'd be kind of weird, wouldn't it? What would that
Let's
what would
not.
that lever look like exactly?
I don't, God, Austin. Here's the thing. So something that illustrates this is that when she's spewing out all of this stuff about voting, and gosh, she really tweets all the time. It's just incessant. But one of her many simps, that's one of the ironies of her doing this, but one of her many simps posted this did I say that? GDP?
GDP.
Sorry, GDP. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, and when that happened, and it's this graph showing how it goes, it spikes, and it spikes right around, the late, mid 1930s, late 1930s, and it kind of, there's a little bit of a climb in the late 20s, and she was like, oh, this is when women started to have the right to vote. And wasn't there some other little historical event that happened around that time? Maybe like the Great Depression. It's just
Yeah.
dumb stuff like that.
All righty. Not all women vote for big government. We know that, especially the ones who are watching the Wake Up America show. We're grateful to have you here today. Make sure you click that like button if you're watching us now and enjoying the content, and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on. Nice to see all of our friends over on Rumble this morning. European Tin Beater, Kermode Bear, Bluethrike, and Will Run Riot. Will Run Riot says women do overwhelmingly support Democrats, but could that in part be because a lot of Republican men and women say that women shouldn't have the right to vote?
I mean, sure. I think right now it's certainly, reflective of where we are culturally and, taking into consideration the effects of feminism. So I don't think that that's entirely surprising. And it's not surprising given the, fundamental differences between men and women. I think a lot of people look at this issue because, let's be real, this is a very online issue. And you're probably not aware of it unless you're very online. And a lot of people that I interact with on a daily basis would be like, what are you talking about? And why does this even matter? And so I think that's a good question. Why is it important? And I think it's because, politics is downstream of culture. And maybe one of the mistakes that we've made in the past and why we see some of the things that we're facing now is because we ignored some of the signs that there's this very real backlash. And now we're experiencing that because we ignored some of the problem signs before. The thing is I think that the risk in not paying attention to this issue now and figuring out ways for people on the right to address this in a really healthy, productive way is that we don't want the pendulum to swing to the opposite end where we're, back to, men just having the control over everything because, there's not either extreme is not healthy. So I think that, it's not good to ignore this, because a lot of people, especially if you're in politics, you're like, okay, the people who are aware of this and who are watching this stuff, they're not our target voter demographic. They are not the voting demographic. Well, guess what? They will be in 10, 15 years.
That's a really good point, Camellia. I'd like to switch topics here to a tweet that you shared with me from another online influencer. She's Ashley St. Clair. And forgive me, I've only followed her just a little bit. I know she's got like 700,000 followers. I think she works for the Babylon Bee. But I know that she had like a scandal or something like that involving like pornographic pictures or videos that she used to do or something like that, which
I'm
makes
not sure.
sense. That's when you're a young girl and you're kind of cute and you lean to the right. You're gonna get a lot of attention if you did porn, but it doesn't. But we forgive that kind of stuff on the right. On the left they put it. On the right, yes. She said this. This is a tweet that she wrote, and it's a couple paragraphs. So forgive me if I read it in total here for our audience, and then I'll let you respond. She says, you know how often I see men showing off their girlfriend or wife's cooking on social media, bragging about how she takes care of the kids? Hardly ever. You know how often I see men commenting on a woman's physical appearance, liking thirst traps on Instagram? All the time. Women typically mirror the desires of men naturally. If men don't like what women have become, it's a direct reflection of their desires, or at least expressed desire. In a way, looking at the state of modern women is a direct reflection of modern men. If less women cook and want children, as the stereotypical trad trope goes, maybe it's in part because men have not shown women that they value femininity and caretaking in the same way they value arm candy for status. Your thoughts?
So I think this is a really fair point, and she's actually responding to what Pearl has been putting out lately. And there's been this big deal because Pearl keeps putting out there this kind of red pill trope that women are more attractive in their 20s than in their 30s. And the thing is like that's all that she says about it. So it comes across as negative, and especially when it's like constantly being put out there in different iterations. And so a lot of women, tend to get very defensive about that and they react. And that what has just, fed the monster, so to speak, is like, so all of a sudden, all of these women, including some, higher profile women on the right, would be posting, pictures of themselves at, 20 some, and then pictures of themselves now at 30 some, and totally giving into that. And so I think what Ashley was talking about is that I think her point is fair in that a lot of what we do see in the content that women put out and what has kind of become the norm is in response to what men want. And, this, I think, is probably something that was not as much of an issue until we had mass media. And then because there was more of an outlet for that and it became much more visually apparent, it became disproportionately normative. And so I think that there has been this extra pressure and influence for women to, post the Instagram pictures, the e-thoughts and all those kind of things. And men respond to that. Maybe it's not
chicken. It's kind of a chicken and the egg scenario in some sense, right? Because it's supply and demand in some ways. If you kind of look at it from an economic model here, there's demand for it. There'll always be demand for it. So the supply exists. And we're talking about, I guess, thoughterry here. THOTTERY, if that's a word. So I guess you can't sort of blame the supply side for the demand, right? It's kind of like the war on drugs, being addicted to, beautiful images of beautiful women, or, the attention that you give to it. There's like this feedback mechanism where a man has this desire, a woman fulfills the desire to an extent, right? By posting a photograph online and seeking, engaging in attention seeking behavior. And then she's rewarded for that attention seeking behavior. But here's the thing. Do you think that, to some extent, even without the demand, women have an attention-seeking desire. So if absent the demand, right? Because you have to consider, once women have passed a certain, we'll call it the wall, right? If we're getting into the red pill terms here, once a woman has passed a certain amount of desirability, there's no demand, but there's still a supply. Meaning that they're
Sure.
still acting like hoes. I mean, excuse me, 304s. you know.
I mean, maybe I think, but the thing is I think in our current culture, we see a lot more of that just because it has been amplified and rewarded so much due to our online and our access to it. So I think that's why I think it's disproportionate to maybe what it would be normally. And so, yeah, it's not like, because, men are not necessarily rewarding, pictures of you, posting pictures of your pies or whatever if you're not also posting pictures of your collarbones and cleavage.
No, somebody's gonna make a pies joke. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. I'm glad to have you here. This show does get a little PG-13 at times, and so we try and keep it under rated R, but it does sometimes cross that line. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you click that like button if you're watching us today. We've got a bunch of people watching us over on Rumble, but we got to get some likes over there. Why don't you click like on that stream, drop a comment, introduce yourself. Same thing over on YouTube. We'd be grateful to have your support with a simple like and a subscribe. We'd appreciate that very much. Camellia, so in terms of the how women's behavior is molded by men, in that sense, it kind of, bolsters the argument for men being the leaders in a way, right? Because if women are sort of responding to female desires, there isn't a mirror aspect of that, right? Women, the problem like with like the war of the sexes here is what we're talking about to an extent, is that like women don't actually signal what they really want in a man, but men at least are signaling what they want in a woman to an extent, right? They want a beautiful woman, right? And if she's posting photographs of herself, I mean, that is a legitimate male desire. I think that probably bothers a lot of women, right? And it bothers a lot of traditional women who would prefer that women aren't out there displaying their buttocks and, pose, in a bikini, shooting an AR-15, what have you, right? But on the other side of things, I mean, women don't really communicate to men what they actually want in men. And it's not necessarily because they're not articulate or they can't articulate. It's that usually what women display in terms of their desires of men is kind of the opposite of what they actually want, meaning that women will tell you they want a sensitive, sweet, kind, artistic, loving, caring, provider male, but those aren't the kind of men that they actually date.
True. I think that I think that women that we do believe that, I don't think it's that we don't want those things. I think that's true. But there's also and a lot of women don't like to admit this, there's also that desire for men to be dominant, for them to take the position of authority in the relationship. And so I think that's, we've seen the balance of that upset quite a bit. And the problem with it is like so many things, when you go extremely one side or the other, basically you're getting into collectivism, like we've talked about before, and we start to ignore the individual component. And when you talk about the red pill community and why that's important for men in their response to, what feminism has done to the culture. That's why I really dislike women like Pearl, because bit of a hot take, I actually really don't think that women have any business being therapists or, counselors or instructing men on what they need to do to develop their masculinity and to be better men.
Whoa. That needs to be dissected on its face right there. And briefly, I want you to get into that, but I just got to read a comment. Daniella Pensack, apparently she is also champing at the bit this morning. She's in the comments. And we're going to talk to her at 8:30, but she says it goes both ways. Women are reflective of men's desires and vice versa. Women are not inherently extensions of men only. I agree with that. All right, now, Camellia, could you please explain a little bit more in detail what you were just saying?
Sure. I mean, I think that the best mentors and counselors for men are men. maybe this is something, part of this is probably something that I probably get some of this from how I was raised, but I also think just relationally, men are better suited for that because they understand that. It's not like women can't understand it all, but as a woman, I can do what Pearl is doing, and I can parrot these talking points, and and there are other women who are doing this too, and
Quite
I saw.
successfully.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's a total grift because the irony is that I could parrot these talking, I can tell men what they want to hear, all of the negative things about women all day long, and they will simp so hard because I am feeding into their belief system. I am validating their feelings about their, success or failures with women. And if I never go beyond that, what good am I doing? All I'm doing is I'm not doing women any good if I'm not talking about what women can do to improve or what some of the positive or the things that we can actually grow and change and learn from this. And I think that's the huge difference. I saw another woman who kind of does some of this stuff, not to the degree that Pearl does, but she made a tweet that said, "I'm so done with guiding men, through this, and I was like, well, there's your problem, honey, is the fact that you think you can guide men through this process for which you really have no personal context for. And I think that that's the difference in what women like Pearl do and what men who have been in the red pill community or leaders in it, so to speak, for a long time do, is they don't just talk about, yes, they talk about some of the negative things about women and some of the realities and biological imperatives and all those kind of things, but they also talk about what men need to do for themselves. And this is on both sides. This is what we need to do. We all have an obligation to fix our own stuff, take care of our own stuff, be responsible for our own behavior before we start, expecting that of someone else.
I do find it fascinating that you'll have all of these rad trads or radical traditionist ladies who live their lives constantly online, rather than going outside and touching grass and raising kids. And then they proceed to lecture men about what is a real man and how a man should act and behave. And then the only men who are listening to them are these simp men that they don't want, or what we call in the manosphere beta male orbiters, right? The men who like circle around her globes. And it's fascinating that that is the scenario that they operate under, but it's an entirely hypocritical scenario. So, are you saying, Camellia, that men shouldn't listen to women in regards to advice when it comes to dating or relationships? You did sort of say it. You did sort of say
Yeah.
that.
Sure, absolutely. I would unequivocally say yes to that. If I, anytime
Now you're
that,
telling me
you
what I
hear
want to
me.
hear.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you
I mean,
are.
you might want to hear it, but I'm saying it not for you. I'm saying this because I believe it.
Okay,
But,
all right.
I'm saying that, if I personally am going to be talking about this issue, I will talk about this issue because I find it fascinating, because I think it is important culturally. I also think it's interesting, from a human nature psychology perspective. But if I am going to tell men, if I'm going to direct them in a way, I'm going to guide them to the resources. Like there's one, oh my gosh, I just lost the name of it, but there's one that I retweet all the time on Twitter that is a great source of good things for men. And there are certain people in the red pill community that I would refer them to as well. Art of Manliness, that's the one I've talked about a lot. I just think that's a much better way for them to do that.
If you're just tuning in to Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Camellia Peterson. We're just friends. We're not family. We're not related. And if you're enjoying the content that you're watching this morning, make sure you click like and subscribe to the channel. We'll be glad to have you join us, because the Wake Up America show is every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central. So it's a great way to start your day if you're getting ready in the morning or getting your kids ready, or getting ready for work, what have you, to listen on the way to work. Just to tap us into your Bluetooth speakers on your computer and whatever it is in your car so that you can listen to the show. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I speak to Camellia Peterson about issues like these in the news of the day. Today just happens to be the day we're talking about red pills and things like that. So in regards to, taking advice from women, it's kind of like that old saying, if you're a fisherman, should you take advice? Do you take advice from how to catch a fish from the fish? It's kind of like that, isn't it?
Sure, sure. I mean, I think this goes for women too. Can men make observations about, women's behavior and our tendencies? Sure. Do I think that that is going to be what persuades a woman to look at herself and to examine herself? I really think that probably needs to be a women's space in doing that. And I actually wish there were more reasonable resources for this. I've said this for quite a while because unfortunately, so many of the resources for this for women that are on the conservative end of things are people who actually interact with Pearl like this. There's traditional godly wife, or I don't know, something like that. But these are people who are kind of on the crazy end of things, and they get that way because they say really controversial things, like, if you tell your husband no and like he decides he wants to anyway, he can do it while you're sleeping, and that's okay.
Oh, God.
So yeah, I mean, like, this, like, we go from one extreme to the other, but I do think that, there needs to be something, like some of these resources you have in the red pill community. I think there needs to be those things for women as well.
That's a really good point, Camellia. Is there anything else on this topic that we haven't covered that you think that we should get to?
Well, I will tell you, I'll drop this in the chat here in a few minutes, but I watched a video because I tend to binge a little bit when I go down these rabbit holes. And so I've been watching some different videos, and there's one I just watched by Ryan Stone, who's somebody who's been in this community for a long time. And it was very nerdy. It talks about E-prime statements, and it talks about how and he was addressing it to men, of course, but it's applicable to women. But he was talking about how we frame our thinking, how we think about ourselves and our locus of control, as far as the idea that we are responsible for our behavior, and that how we talk about someone else, how we think about someone else is very much affected by how we frame that. For example, the E-prime statements is basically when you use something with a is, are, type verb. Like, instead of saying, Austin is smart, I should really frame that. And like, why? I mean, like, I'm labeling you and I'm fitting you into that box, and nobody knows what that means. And so you begin to act that way. But when I say, Austin is really great at grasping concepts and remembering things very quickly, and, does a good job of teaching people, those concepts, that defines what I'm talking about. It just doesn't stick a label on you.
Makes a really good point. Not sticking labels on there. I prefer labels just because I think it helps us to categorize things. But
sure,
keeping an open mind is always wise and important. Camellia Peterson, you are at Rare Camellia on Twitter, and you're our regular Tuesday and Thursday guest. Very much enjoyed it today, Camellia. Thanks so much. Oh, yes or no? I guess real quick. Should women be allowed to vote?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think I disagree. Camellia Peterson, thank you very much for your time. We'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks for the fun little car video today.
Have a great day.
Thanks very much. I got to talk to you today about my good friend John Burke. He's going to be on the show tomorrow at 9 a.m. Oh, God, that reminds me. Actually, tomorrow, don't forget, the show's going to be 2 hours later. Yeah, in order for me to be able to accommodate John's schedule, the Wake Up America show tomorrow will be waking up a little bit later. So tomorrow morning, don't look for us at 7 a.m. for all of you regular viewers and listeners. I know tomorrow morning people are going to be like, well, what's going on? Where's the show? 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, okay? 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Wake Up America show in studio with John Burke and my lovely wife, Stephanie Peterson. So we're going to have a twofer. So Family Friday, but John Burke extended family. He will be on tomorrow morning, and the show will be starting a little bit later. We'll have the Wake Up America show tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central Time starting, okay? Didn't want you guys to forget. And while I'm on the topic of John Burke, why don't you head on over to shellshockcbd.com today and get yourself some CBD or some Delta 8. God, that Delta 8 is so strong. For those of you who still love to party on a Friday night, let me tell you something. If you get some of John Burke's Delta 8, you are going to be flying high. And it's not legal in 8 states, but for most states, and especially states that have legalized THC, you're fine. Visit shellshockcbd.com today. Use that code AP4Liberty in order to get that 10% discount off of Shell Shock CBD. I like the roll-on, roll-off CBD freeze roll-on. That one really helped with my back pain when I threw it out a few weeks ago. I am feeling much better. Probably thanks to the CBD roll-on, roll-off, because with that and a little bit of Tylenol, I was doing just fine. But the CBD freeze roll gives that local pain relief, which I really needed. You can get all that and more at shellshockcbd.com. 10% off if you use that code AP for Liberty. And of course, that's how they know that Austin is doing what he's supposed to be doing, selling some products in order to keep the Wake Up America show rocking and rolling. The Wake Up America show brought to you by Shell Shock CBD. Here's the thing. If you buy from Shell Shock CBD, this is not your like dollar store or, gas station CBD. This stuff is high dosage, very powerful and effective. But if it doesn't work for you and you try it and you say, Austin, you know what? Didn't work as advertised. Guess what? Get your money back, right? It's a good price for what you get. And you get 10% off with my code AP for Liberty. Plus, if you don't like it, send it back. Full refund. shellshockcbd.com. Thanks very much. All right. Yeah, tomorrow we all get to sleep in a little bit. 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. John Burke will be with us in the studio. Going to be a little bit later morning show. It'll be a lot of fun. All right. Well, Daniella Pensack, she wants to talk about that issue. She's already champing at the bit, dropping comments over there about Pearl, talking about whether women should be able to vote or not. I wonder what she has to say about that. I also like to talk to her a little bit about how Ben & Jerry's is going off the rails. I scream, you scream, we all scream for Ben & Jerry's to shut the hell up. When we get back on the Wake Up America show at Wake Up America Show.
Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're glad to have you here. If you enjoy the show, make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on if you're watching us now live. Maybe you're listening to us a little bit later. We do have an audio podcast for those who are listening to us live, saying to yourself, hey, sometimes I can't always tune into the show in the mornings and I won't be able to watch a 2-hour video show, but I've got a little bit of time to listen to something in the background. You can subscribe to the Wake Up America show on any of your podcast platforms, whether it's Apple, iTunes, we're on Google Podcasts, as well as on Spotify and pretty much every major podcast network. So why don't you head over now to whatever is your favorite app that you listen to podcasts on and subscribe to the Wake Up America show. That way you don't have to miss any of the excellent content if you can't tune in to the live show in the mornings, and we'd be super grateful for that. All right, a lot of you I know are big fans of my next guest. I hear lots of nice comments about her weekly guest appearance on the Wake Up America show. She gets up 2 hours earlier than all of us, her being on the West Coast, to join us to talk about the biggest issues of the day. She is Daniella Pensack. She is a field coordinator for Turning Point USA. She's joining us now. Good morning, Daniella.
Good morning, Austin. Thank you for having me this morning.
I'm glad to have you here, Daniella. Tell us, Daniella, you had a few things to say about my previous segment with Camellia. We were talking about the online influencer Pearl, who goes by just Pearly Things. She was offering her opinion on Piers Morgan's show that she doesn't think women should really be allowed to vote, and that most women at the time, she said, only 5% of women at the time wanted to be able to vote. What are your thoughts?
Right. So I didn't catch the part where she got that statistic, or at what time period she got that statistic. Did she say that? Because
She said it was at the time. So, let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say that, when the amendment was, the 19th Amendment was passed, that only 5% of women at the time actually wanted it.
Oh, okay.
Let's give her the benefit of the doubt. But today is today. It's 2023. Is it time for
Right.
us to turn back the clock, Danielle?
No, I mean, that's ridiculous. Obviously, this is like Camellia said earlier, it's more of an online issue. It's for people who don't touch grass. Most people and most Americans, I think, would agree that women should be able to vote. I can understand, especially in the current climate of politics today, it's like if you say the most inflammatory thing, that's what gets you attention, and that's the grift, right? And it's unfortunate that that has to be the case, because you'll say inflammatory things, and because we're so terminally online, there will be a good number of people that will support it. And like this whole like gender war situation that's going on in social media right now is so tiring, because I don't think it's that complicated, or it should be that complicated. And a lot of this, of course, is perpetuated by dating culture, which is the actual problem here. I don't think that should bleed into matters of policy, obviously, but that's what we're seeing happen right now. I don't And I think what Camellia said earlier was right. We should be taking it seriously now, unfortunately, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next decade or so. People may take this more seriously in the grand scheme of things. But I mean, idealistically speaking, from my own personal values, I think it's foolish. Obviously, women should be able to vote.
Daniela, what you just brought up, I think, is the key here because you say that we do have to get ahead of it because what exists online now comes out into the real world in terms of policy. I don't think that there's any danger of us overturning a constitutional amendment because we can't even agree on, a billion other things. However, there is it's not just people saying controversial things for no reason. One, there is the grift, but two, I think people rightly are feeling disgusted by what feminism has turned into and what it has turned women into, Daniela, and you probably agree with that. So really, where should the conversation be in your mind on this topic?
I think it matters about like when we talk about feminism, when people ask me if I'm a feminist, I don't like to answer the question because I don't know what they mean by that anymore. Because people on the left will state that feminism is about equal rights, that's all it means. People on the right characterize feminism as, something else entirely, and I think both are valid. I don't like to say I'm a feminist just because of the many connotations that are attached to that word. But in terms of like what feminism has done to society, you would have to talk about specifics here. Because again, a lot of it I feel like is reflected in dating culture and not so much in matters of policy. Do women tend to vote more liberal? Yes. But I think that's just kind of like the nature of the political framework because women have always typically had more progressive leaning views because I mean the very fact that women have a right to vote in and of itself was a progressive ideal. So unfortunately you're always going to have this push and pull in politics where you have the more male centric conservative side and more of the feminine progressive element. But and it's so hard for me to believe that policies like this would really make it through because politically in the political world, I mean, it is still heavily male dominated, but a lot of women are involved in politics now, all over the world, but also in America. So it's very hard for me to believe that this would even go that far because women are so heavily involved in their communities. Women do typically tend to be more socially aware, more community oriented, and that's why they oftentimes get involved in politics and run for office and try to make policy changes as well. And so yeah, this whole idea, and is that like a byproduct of feminism? Yeah, I think in the last century perhaps, but there are a lot of wonderful
Oh, hello. Looks like we've lost Daniela there, unfortunately. Oh no, she froze. What do you do? You know what this is? I blame feminism. I'm gonna go ahead and send her a new link and we'll get her back on the show. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here. I want to get my friend Daniella Pensack. She's a Turning Point USA field coordinator. I'm going to give her the link to the show on her Instagram. That's where I drop it. There we go. Boom. There's a new link for you to connect to. Boom, boom. We'll get her back on the show. We're talking to her a little bit about controversial comments that were made by social influencer Pearl, aka Just Pearly Things, that she goes by online. She appeared on Piers Morgan's telecast yesterday to talk about why she thinks that women should not have the right to vote. And Daniella Pensack is arguing in the negative on that question. Rare Camellia over in the live stream says that's why people like Pearl are more popular than red pill guys like Rollo Tomasi or Ryan Stone. Clickbait over substance. Disclaimer, I don't agree with everything those men put out. That's really interesting. We'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Chris Morrill says that we've had a woman win the popular vote in a presidential election, and the sitting vice president is a woman. This whole thing is silly. None of this women shouldn't be able to vote stuff is serious political discussion. It's carnival barking. That's an interesting point of view. We'd love to hear yours as well. Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We're going to try and get Daniella back on the show. Looks like she's popping back up in the stream. And we're going to ask her a little bit about another topic, which is the question of living on stolen land. Looks like she's there. She's back. She's connected to audio, and she's here with us. Hey, Danielle.
Oh man, yeah, connectivity kind of sucks where I live. That's what happens when you live in the woods, though.
Well,
Sorry
probably
about that.
you live in the woods, you touch grass, and that's what makes you a conservative.
Correct.
Daniela, let's move on to the next topic. On the 4th of July, Ben and Jerry's noted leftists came out with a quite unpopular message. What did they say?
Yeah, so Ben and Jerry's already like a more progressive, I guess you could say, company has come out and tweeted on 4th of July. Now, I just want to set the stage though. Previous to this, we had an entire month where we celebrated or we were forced to celebrate Pride Month. And so just for one day of the month, Americans wanted to celebrate National Pride, but Ben and Jerry's would not have it. So they tweeted out saying that it's high time for Americans to recognize that we live on stolen land. And in the link, in the tweet, they linked to a petition to get Mount Rushmore back to the Lakota peoples. And just at like first sight at this tweet, you can tell it was heavily ratioed. There was like 8,000 likes, but over 46,000 comments. So you can understand the response it got. It got quite the backlash. And it irritated a lot of people, understandably, because, you know, it always comes down to that. It's like, you know, God forbid we have any national pride. God forbid we love America. Ben and Jerry's has lost a good amount of people, and because of the virality of the tweet, I think a lot of people are going to start boycotting Ben and Jerry's. It's already understood that it's a pretty progressive company. I know they donated to like liberal causes before. And if you look at their previous tweets, they have pretty harsh political stances, especially in the recent Supreme Court rulings. So I'm surprised that they didn't get the reaction before, but this tweet did go viral, and understandably, people are going to start boycotting.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, Daniela, I know you're a little on the younger side of things. Typically, you know, if I had a younger person on my show like yourself, I would take it a little bit easier on them in terms of asking them really difficult policy questions. But you have a master's degree, you're whip cracking smart. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't push you a little bit here and get your take on the whole question of stolen land from the Native Americans. Was the land stolen?
It was conquered. And that's where we are today. And you know what? We did make a lot of improvements for this world. It's unfortunate the route we had to take to conquer it, but you know what? That was pretty much, I mean, that's manifest destiny, right? I mean, that's what makes America so great. And we did make a lot of improvements on this land, and it should stay that way. I mean, previous to us conquering it, let's be fair, the various Native American tribes weren't the most kindest to each other. They tried to conquer each other many times, and often they did. So I don't see much of a difference. It's just that Europeans had more of the proper utensils to do so. And so that's where we are today. And I think that's perfectly fine.
So you believe in the legitimate right of conquest?
I do, more so in the past. Today, because of like the global climate that we live in, it's a little, I kind of like see both sides of it, because, you know, we do have like more globalized arrangements on how to approach these issues. Obviously, I don't believe in like total warfare to get things done. We more rely on diplomacy these days. But I think in the past it was a very legitimate way to get around, you know, in the political framework, because overall, like the international system is an anarchy. And that's how we operate. It's just that these days we rely more on diplomacy to do that. And I think that's what we should strive for, as opposed to the past. But as far as where we've come from in the past, I think America is legitimate in its sovereignty and in its existence.
So then what about the claim to Mount Rushmore? The Lakota tribe claims that that is their sacred land, that we put our, you know, American presidents on. Do you think that they have any right to make that claim?
I think, I mean, even if they do get Mount Rushmore, I would be interested to see what they do with it. Like, are they going to put tribe leaders on there instead? Or I would be interested to find out. But no, I don't think it should go to them. Ultimately, you know, that is a sacred American spot, and we should maintain it that way. And again, it is unfortunate that I do believe we should recognize the turmoils that the indigenous people did undergo. But at the same time, it's like I'm not big on reinventing historical objects and like tearing down statues, because there is a history involved. And when we try to ignore history and not acknowledge it for what it is, and when forgetting our history as a nation, that's going to be more destructive in the long run.
Some people like to call us colonizers, Daniela. I prefer to call us winners. And I
Yeah.
agree with you when it comes to the issue of conquest. I do believe in a right of conquest, specifically, especially when one is first attacked. And the idea that the United States was owned by the indigenous people is completely wrong. The majority of the Native Americans who were here didn't even have a concept of property rights, and much of the land was available and open and ready to be homesteaded. Now, when it came to the question of us dropping railroads across the United States, it was impossible for us to be able to engage in that kind of a construction when there were Indian tribes that were constantly raiding the people, the pioneers who were settling those lands, and were committing acts of violence against them and engaging in train robbing and all sorts of acts of manner of savagery and butchery against people who were just trying to settle lands. And homesteading itself is a very libertarian a concept that a lot of people really aren't aware of. Now, in regards to, how the left feels about the Native Americans, meaning people like yourself and myself who are, citizens of the United States, isn't it really the ulterior motive here, Daniela, that a lot of this from the left, which is being pushed not by the Lakota tribes or the Native Americans or the indigenous people or even minorities, it's really just a manifestation of white guilt?
Yes, absolutely, and that's what Ben and Jerry's is doing right now. I mean, this is all. Ben and Jerry's, again, like I mentioned, it is known to be more of a progressive company. So what they're trying to do is trying to get more positive attention from its base. But at the end of the day, it's not a policy institute. It's an ice cream company. So they need to be focusing on making ice cream. I think it's fairly obvious. But their move here, I think there's a silver lining to it, because at least consumers can tell what brands to ignore and what to buy. I think with the Bud Light situation, what it has done, it's more significant than what we realize, because I do believe that it has opened the doors for us understanding of the potential we have in consumer power. Just a couple days ago, Mattel executives have come out and said that the upcoming Barbie movie, for those who don't know, Mattel is like the brand behind Barbie. And executives have come out a couple days ago and said that the upcoming Barbie movie is not feminist. They don't want people to perceive it that way, because they know if they do, they're going to lose a lot of money. The director of the film also came out and said that, because I believe one of the crew members, I don't know, I forgot which one. I don't know if it was Margot Robbie, the main lead, but one of the crew members said that it's a feminist film. And so we have all these top line executives coming out and saying, no, wait, it's not feminist, it's a humanist film. As if that's supposed to make it better. I guess they're trying, but you see, so we're starting to see this kind of like slowly we're inching forward to see that these organizations, these companies, and these brands, I think they're starting to realize that they don't want to make corporate suicide, and they're seeing, and what we're seeing with Ben and Jerry's and Bud Light and others, I think, is unfortunately they have to fall on their own sword, but they're revealing to us the power of consumer power and conscious consumership, and how that could change the cultural framework in America.
For sure. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here. I'm speaking to Daniella Pensack. She is a Turning Point USA field coordinator this morning. We're glad to have her on the show. She's a regular on Thursdays at 8 a.m. Central Time. So make sure you set a clock so that you can come back and watch her next week if you really enjoy her content. Also, click like on the stream and click subscribe if it's your first time watching us today and you want to get more content just like what you're watching. Daniella, I'm going to pull away from you on the screen for just a moment so that I can show this clip, and I'm going to have you respond to it. These are, speaking of white guilt, this is a bunch of leftist affirmative action protesters, and they are suspiciously colorless in the terms of they're whiter than you are, Daniella, but they're performing some kind of a ritual on the Supreme Court steps. And I'm going to show this here to my listeners if the internet will be nice and let me play the clip. Doesn't seem to want to let me do that. Hold on, let me pull this up. There we go. All right, let's take a look and listen here. I'm not the only one. Not the only one is what they seem to be chanting here. Jeez, what is going on here? All right, that's quite enough of that. Is this a zombie invasion? What the hell's going on here, Daniela?
Yeah, apparently a few days ago, these group of people the guys have just saw, all dressed in black flags, are chanting something in front of the Thurgood Marshall courthouse. It's located in Lower Manhattan in New York, and they're doing this in response to the latest Supreme Court rulings on affirmative action and student debt relief. And so, yeah, there's a lot of speculation about what's going on here. That clip did go a bit viral on Twitter, and everyone's response is pretty much the same. What is going on? Is this mental illness? Is this a religious ritual? Is it like a woke religion? What's going on here? I don't think it matters either or. What does matter is that obviously these people, progressive left, this is how they respond to policy change. They don't know how to make actual changes, but how they do respond is making a scene, is crying like a toddler, because I guess that's what they were taught to do, and they don't know any differently. And unfortunately, that's the case with the progressive left in America. So don't let anyone tell you that progressivism doesn't lead to mental illness, because apparently, for all intents and purposes, it does. We see that unfold right here. These people don't know how to actually have a discussion, jump through the hoops. They just want to sit and cry like a toddler.
Daniela, this is why we have you on as a regular on this show, because your commentary is just so spot on. Daniela, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go today?
Nothing of substance other than follow me on social media, Instagram, official Daniella Pensack. Also on TikTok, official Daniella Pensack. I also have a Substack if you're interested in reading a little bit more in depth on policy and political philosophy. I don't know if a lot of people would want that, though. I know it's kind of boring, but Daniella Pensack on Substack as well. So follow me on those links.
I think it's awesome. I also really like you on TikTok, where you get to delve into the conspiracy theory stuff, and it's kind of fun to watch you with your green screen activity over there. You're gonna have to teach me how to do that. Daniela, you're doing awesome. We appreciate you very much. Thanks so much for standing up for freedom, and thanks so much for getting up early and joining us and being generous with your time. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's Daniella Pensack. She'll be back next week at the same time, 8 a.m. Central Time on the Wake Up America show. I hope you are enjoying the content. I saw somebody earlier in one of the streams asked about my shirt. Now, that's a great opportunity for me to tell you really briefly that you should check out ap4libertyshop.com, and you can get a shirt just like this. Hold on, let me hit that button. There we go. All gun laws are an infringement. Very comfy shirt. Nice. I'm wearing an extra large here, so they are true to size. You can get your own All Gun Laws Are an Infringement shirt over at ap4libertyshop.com. Oh, and I want to remind you, if you're a monthly subscriber to the Wake Up America show, don't forget, you do get your 20% discount off. I know somebody signed up for the monthly subscription thing the other day, and it doesn't give me your email address. So I can't email you and tell you, hey, here's your 20% discount code that I have to give to you. So if you have been wanting to get some stuff at the shop and you're a monthly subscriber, but you don't know your code, send me a DM at AP for Liberty, and I will get you your 20% discount code. So if you want to get one of these awesome All Gun Laws Are Infringement shirt designed by me, FYI, the font, the snake, well, I didn't make the snake, that's a 1776 thing, the AR-15, as well as the everything on here. So all gun laws are an infringement. Get it over at ap4libertyshop.com today. And again, monthly subscribers to the show get a 20% discount off there. Cheeky Mare, thank you, Libby. Just dropped the link over on YouTube, and we appreciate that very much. All right, let's see. Let's talk about the story of the day here. So Zuckerberg and Musk, the fight is on. Meta launches their Twitter killer Threads app. So Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg is set to deliver this blow. He did it, well, I guess he did it on Wednesday night. And the tech billionaires are in this rivalry now, where they're talking about getting into an actual fight happening at the actual Coliseum in Italy, which I think would be friggin' amazing. Analysts said that investors were salivating over the possibility that Threads ties to Instagram, Threads is the new social media platform that Zuckerberg created, might give it a built-in user base and advertising apparatus. I'm honestly excited to see what's going to happen on Threads, to see if it's a good place to advertise, because Instagram's been decent, actually. Instagram has been one of the best places to advertise, probably the best place, other than maybe Twitter. And if Threads becomes a good place for me to advertise AP for Liberty Shop or the Wake Up America show, etc., then I definitely am going to spend more time over there. I just got signed up for it last night, and I'm AP for Liberty over on Threads. And so far, it seems kind of exactly like Twitter. I've been a little curious to find out what really is the big difference between Twitter and Threads. It seems to be almost the exact same thing. Threads has attracted already about 10 million signups, including a growing number of celebrities like Jennifer Lopez, Shakira, Gordon Ramsay, Tom Brady, and Coldplay. They were among those to sign up for the app early on. People voted for the Nazis and listened to Coldplay. You can't trust people, Jez. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg said in a post on the new platform that he hopes to see the Thread community grow to over 1 billion members. And then he also took to Twitter. I loved this. This was cute. He took to Twitter for what appeared to be his first post in over a decade, sharing a popular Spider-Man meme, where it appeared to be a nod to Thread's similarities to Twitter. That Spider meme where it's like, oh, they're both the same. We're both the same. Here, I'll tell you what, I'll pull it up for you so you can see what the hell I'm talking about if you're not in a meme culture online. Here it is. This is Mark Zuckerberg's tweet. You can see it up on the screen if you're listening to us later. You can't hear it. You can't, obviously, there's no way to see something if you're listening to the audio. There we go. Mark Zuckerberg right there with his first tweet in a decade with the Spider-Man theme. Very funny, honestly. I kind of like it, actually. Way to go, Mark. Very, very good little tweet there. Way to kick off your new platform. So the app opens up, when you open it up, to this kind of like, short form text, 500 characters per post, and you can add an individual photo or a whole carousel of photos and videos. Posts are going to include content from accounts that users follow. So, again, just like Twitter, viewers can engage by liking, commenting, reposting, and sharing to your Instagram story or feed, apparently, which I haven't been able to figure out just yet. So the features mimic those of Twitter, but its user interface design resembles Instagram. Same like heart, comment, and share buttons, and similarly placed tabs. So a lot of people looking to compete with Twitter these days, and honestly, I'm kind of for it, because as much as I like Twitter and use it frequently, probably more than most other apps, it has been pretty clunky lately. And if you're not an iPhone user, typically they develop their iPhone apps first and then their Android apps. And then, I'm just not an iPhone user. I'm not into it. I've had one, but it's got too many limitations for me in certain ways, so I go with the Android. And they're way less expensive, and just you get more support. I just don't care for the iPhone. That's me, but usually the apps that are developed for Android aren't necessarily as sophisticated and like perfect and clean as the ones that they have for iPhone. Just my point of view. Love to hear your thoughts on that, and as well. Accounts that users have already blocked on Instagram will also already be blocked on Threads. That's pretty good. So you can limit interactions. You can choose whether to allow replies from everybody, right? Just like you would on Instagram. And Instagram's community guidelines will be enforced on Threads, and users can report one another for violations. As on Twitter, users can choose to hide specific words or phrases from their feeds. So they've been testing it for some time now, and the app is available only in the United States, not available in the European Union. See, another reason why it's better to be in the United States, better to be America, #1, baby. Now, there was this new decentralized social networking protocol as part of this new and rising movement that I think is very unfortunately named, which I just learned about yesterday. They call this the Fediverse, like feds. Fediverse, right? So what are you thinking immediately? You're like, no, God. No, right? Not interested in that, right? But it's basically this movement which allows information to flow between social media platforms and other services. So this would make Threads interoperable with other apps that support this protocol, like Mastodon or WordPress, right? So I'll be interested to see exactly how they plan to pull this off. There's an explanation for it with the head of Instagram, the guy that Mark Zuckerberg has hired to run Instagram. Let's just watch it real quick. I only got a few more minutes in the show, but let's take a listen and look and see what Mr. Mosseri has to say about the new social media platform. What do you say? Let's take a look.
From Instagram is here. Threads is for public conversation. We're hoping to bring some of what we've built for photos and videos on Instagram to Threads with text. Now the idea is that there's an amazing community on Instagram and wonderful creators. We want to create a space where they can engage in public conversations that is friendly and that is open. And so we're going to bring a lot of the good tools from Instagram to Threads. Things like hidden words, and restrict, which allow you to shape the experience into something a little bit more friendly. Things like our community guidelines, and over time, more features around recommendations and trends.
Those community guidelines get me every time, I'll tell you. They don't like me on the community guidelines.
We're also working to integrate the Activity Pub protocol, which is some technology that's behind the Mastodon server and network, which is a decentralized social network. Now, you might be wondering why that matters. Well, if you're a creator, you should own your audience, and integrating into this protocol should allow us to enable you to take your followers with you to another server or app should you so choose in the future. And
oh, thank God. See, that would be so nice, because they don't, when they shut me down, it just kills me, right? It kills my monetization. It kills my ability to have speech, because as somebody who doesn't have 1 billion followers or something like that, there's a real power that you have when you're kind of sub 100,000 on a lot of these platforms. Even if you got 80, 90,000 followers, kind of like where I'm at on some of these social media platforms, you really do get the short end of the stick. And there's a tiered system that they have for approved points of views and celebrities who are non-political. But people like ourselves, people like myself, I mean, I would feel bad for any libertarian who's trying to make it in social media world. Sometimes there are people who rise up and stuff like that, but for the most part, they try and squash creators like myself.
we think that would be incredibly important to offer the creator community. That's what we're working on, that and a number of other features to try to improve Threads as quickly as we can. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And
what do you think? Why don't you let me know what you think down below in the comments? It's time for me to go. I know. It's already 9 a.m. Tomorrow, don't forget, the show starts at 9 a.m. So tomorrow at this time, this is when we're going to actually be kicking the show off. All right. So don't be showing up tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. and sending me DMs. I know it's going to happen anyway. Austin, no show today. What's going on? I'm going to post about it on Twitter. I'm going to post on all my social networks. I'm going to let people know that the show is going to start tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central, not 7 a.m. John Burke will be in studio for Family Friday. Won't that be great? Man, this is exhausting. It's just getting up early and doing all this stuff and having the energy to do all this stuff all by myself. It ain't easy. So why don't you drop a super chat before you leave? A little tip jar, a little donation, would you will, to help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. Do us a favor before you leave on the way out. Just drop a little tip in the digital tip jar so that I can continue to keep rocking and rolling. I needs the energy, a little bit of cash. What do you say? Thanks, Dash. Nice to see you, brother. Doug H., Corey C., Cheeky Mare, the lovely Libby. Chris Morrill is here with Robbie Thurman, as well as our, Corey C., happy birthday, by the way. John Knox is here. Rare Camellia, Andy Opperman, Tolly Owens, Sarah Palacios, Joni Rankin, Doug H., Hikaru K. Glad to have you all here. Brian Lewis, as well as all of our friends over on Rumble, like European Tin Beater, Kermode Bear, Nelson65, Levin214, Quantum Kitty, Bell R, Blutrike, and Will Run Riot, and all of our other friends over on Rumble this morning. Before you leave, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. There's 50 people watching us over on Rumble. What are you doing? Click that like button and subscribe so that you can get updates whenever we go live, which is almost always Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central. Tomorrow, only 9 a.m. is a special favor for our buddy John Burke, who will be joining us in studio. Going to be fun. We'll see you then on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. was 1946. A battle was fought, not overseas, but right here on American soil. The Battle of Athens. An intense struggle against election fraud and for the rights promised by our founding fathers. Driven by the Second Amendment, ordinary citizens stood tall and fought back. Help us expose this momentous battle of integrity and bravery. Your support can make a difference. Visit givesendgo.com/bleedamerican and pledge your support, because we believe in the power of truth, the strength of unity, and the spirit of we the people. Let us not forget, we bleed American.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.